Welcome back to Unapologetically Progressive. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to just talk about some things that I think we should be doing. Now, the fact is, we've given $7 trillion in tax cuts over the last few years to the billionaire class. And what have they done with the wealth? They've hoarded it. Have they created more jobs with it? No. Have they created higher paying jobs with it? No. What they have done is hoard the wealth. So, why is it that every single time we turn around, they tell us the powers that be tell us we don't have the money to fund, Head Start. We don't have the funding for free school lunches. We don't have the funding for food stamps. We don't have the funding to help the poor, elderly, and disabled. We don't have the money to help children. Yet we gave $7 billion to the top 1% of this country with those 2017, 2018 tax cuts. And they held on to that money. They didn't do anything with it. The corporations that got tax breaks, you know what they did with that money? They didn't use it to help improve the lives of their workers, improve their benefits, or improve their pay. They used it on stock buybacks. Some companies use that money to find ways to make people pay more for their rent and their groceries. Now, why is it that this is how it works? Right? Why is it that it's always socialism for the rich and capitalism for the rest of us? Why is that how it works? And sometimes I think it's because the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I think what it is a small number of billionaires complain, and the rest of America just jumps and does what they say. Meanwhile, I have seen two actual billionaires, not somebody that's just a billionaire on paper, but two actual billionaires, Warren Buffett and Mark Cuban, talk about how paying more in taxes is their patriotic duty. That they don't want the tax cuts. But in some instances, people are required to take the tax cuts because of their responsibility to shareholders of their businesses. And so, what are we supposed to do? The fact is, we have the money. If the billionaires would give back just not even 50%, just a quarter of that money, if we were taxing them just a little bit more, little Billy could go to school and have free breakfast and lunch in every school in the country. Right? Like, it's not that difficult. We could fully fund programs so children can have food during the summer when they're not in class. These are things we could do. We could ensure that every child has access to health care, access to food, access to shelter by taxing the billionaire class just a little bit. Cutting out some of the loopholes they have would fund many of these programs. We're supposed to be the richest nation on earth. We're supposed to be the best nation in the world. But we're one of the highest in infant mortality rates. We're one of the highest in in mothers dying from childbirth. But we're not putting anything to help that. When children are born, we demand that children be born in this country, yet we don't do anything to feed them once they're born. Right now, you have the Trump administration trying to cut WIC. And they're trying to cut the CHIPS program, the Children's Health Insurance Program. These are things that they're actually doing. They're cutting funding for cancer treatment for children. Are you kidding me? Yeah, we can't afford anything to deal with to help the children, but we sure as hell can help a billionaire afford another yacht. If you're worth $400 billion, Elon Musk, why do people like you need more money? People can say, oh, well, they earned it. It's theirs. Well, you know what? They didn't earn it on their own. Not one billionaire made their money on their own. Not one of them. Every billionaire that exists because of the consumer. If there were no consumers, there would be no billionaires. So how about you give the consumers a break and the employees that build your companies? For example, Elon Musk has never built anything in his life. The only thing that came out of his brain is ideas. Right? The Tesla already existed before he ended up taking control of Tesla. It already existed. He hired people to make it better. He didn't make it better. And the one thing that's actually his brainchild that he actually had time and invested into was the Cybertruck. Think about it. Every other Tesla before the Cybertruck was a quality vehicle. You didn't hear about them falling apart on the highway while they drove down the streets, right? But you hear that out of his brainchild, the Cybertruck. He founded SpaceX, but he doesn't invent the rockets because he doesn't know how any of it works. He's hired scientists who have gone to school who know how to do that stuff. These billionaires would have nothing without their employees and without the consumer. That's where it is. That's the bottom line right there. And they treat the consumer and they treat their employees like they're garbage. They refuse to pay living wages while they're out there, living in their fifth house. Their workers are having to suck money off of the government teat, as they say, through food stamps, welfare, yet they refuse to pay a living wage. I'm sorry. If a business like Walmart, right? If there should be a rule, right, that if over 20% of your workforce requires any government assistance at all, whether that be rental assistance, food stamps, or whatever, to get by, because you're not paying enough, you should have to pay extra in taxes to your state and local governments to make sure that those people that the state and local governments are reimbursed for things like food stamps. Or you should have to pay a living wage. Either way. These corporations and these billionaires, they don't deserve these tax cuts. But little Billy, little Sally at school, they deserve lunch. They deserve breakfast. They deserve being able to do whatever they need to do as a child. Whether that is go to the doctor or not. Right? These are things that kids need to be able to do. I remember growing up in a household where we didn't have a doctor. And I was sick all the time. Because we couldn't afford it. We didn't have any money. And when we asked the government for help, they told us no. Because my mom had made too much money prior to losing her job. And for 6 months, she had no job. And for several years after that, we had no doctor. There were several times that my cough syrups, whenever I got bronchitis or whenever I got the flu, were rum and honey. Nothing good for decongestion, nothing good to actually help you get better. Just rum and honey, because that's what we had. And no child should have to live like that. There are many times during that time span where I went to school on an empty stomach and came home on an empty stomach. No matter how hard my mom was busting her ass to make money. But she was trying to put food on the table at dinner time. She was trying to provide rent. She was trying to provide clothing and housing. Yet she was told no when it came to financial assistance from our government. And this plays out in family after family across this country. And it's time we say no, that we stand up and say no more. This is absolutely disgusting what's going on in this country right now. The fact that the billionaire class gets all these tax breaks and never have to pay any of it back. The fact that children are starving at school, barely being able to focus on their studies because a billionaire is out there living on their new yacht. Come on now. Tell me that's okay. Tell me that's reasonable. That children are having to hold their stomachs. That they're having to go without food and health care. That should be a human right. Also, a billionaire can have an extra yacht and an extra mansion. So another billionaire can build another rocket. Right? America's lost its way. We're supposed to be taking care of the welfare of this country, especially of the most vulnerable, the children. They say they say they care about the children. They claim that the children are all they care about in all these bills that they're passing against the LGBTQ community, about abortion and all this stuff. Yet as soon as a child is born, they don't care about them. They won't feed them, they won't clothe them, they won't house them. And that is the difference between the progressive left and the insane MAGA right. That is the difference. People on the progressive side of things believe children deserve to eat. Children deserve to be able to go to the doctor when they're sick. Children deserve to live in a home with a roof over their heads. People on the right don't believe that. They believe billionaires deserve all the tax cuts and that's all that matters. That children getting food isn't important. That according to them, children that are too poor to eat can blame their parents. I don't care what choices a parent has made. I don't care what a parent has done. A child deserves to eat. A child deserves clothing. A child deserves a place to live with a roof over their heads with their families. Nobody's perfect in this world. And we're all just trying to get through this thing that they call life, right? Isn't that what Prince said? We're all just trying to get through this thing called life. And no, not everybody makes perfect decisions. Not everybody can be perfect. Not everybody, makes it through life unharmed, right? Yes, sometimes parents can become, can be addicts They can have problems holding down stable jobs. They can have problems. But the child should not suffer for that. Can we stop with the sins of the father bullshit that we keep doing here in the United States of America? It's un-American. It's disgusting. And it's inhumane to children. So how about we claw back a little bit of that $7 trillion in tax cuts that the billionaire class have received? And I'm not just blaming Republicans for tax cuts. Democrats do them too. I have problems with both parties when it comes to the way we look at taxing billionaires. But the fact is, children deserve to eat more than a billionaire deserves another yacht, more than a billionaire deserves another mansion. There's another group of people that we keep forgetting about too. Homeless veterans. People that have gone to war to fight for this country. Who have come back with PTSD and all sorts of other issues. That are unable to maintain a job when they get home. The people on the right used to be the ones that were so gung-ho about supporting our veterans, demanding that I have to support our veterans no matter what they've done. I remember back a few years ago, probably 15 years ago now, when some of the stuff came out about what some of our veterans did at Abu Ghraib, I was told that I'm supposed to respect all our veterans. And I'm like, no, I won't. And I was told I was un-American and that I should get out. But I still support our veterans overall. Because many of them went to war thinking they were doing something right for this country. They signed up for our military thinking they were defending our freedoms here at home. And I'm not going to sit there and shit on the entire group of veterans just because a few people did something wrong. But the fact is, you've got people that no longer care, that claimed for decades to care. But I really believe something I told somebody the other day is absolutely true about the Republican Party. I believe John McCain was the heart, the moral center of their moral compass on the right. And when John McCain died, I think they lost that. They lost their way. Because I had a lot of disagreements with John McCain, but the one thing that we could agree on was that children were precious. That children deserved to be taken care of. That people shouldn't just lose their health care. That children should have access to health care. Now, he and I may have disagreed on how we get around to doing that, right? And he was often a proponent of tax cuts for the billionaires. But he also wouldn't do it on the backs of the children, the elderly, and the disabled. He wouldn't attack veterans the way Donald Trump does. And just look at what happened to Lindsey Graham after the passing of John McCain. Lindsey Graham was an upstanding human being, it seemed like. Except for his hate of the LGBTQ community, all in all, he did right by the people of America. He didn't really push bills to hurt the LGBTQ community. He just didn't support us. Even though it appears he's part of it. But he actually at least had ethics. He had a moral compass. One of his best friends was John McCain. And it's so sad. Because Americans, they have to be able to have respect for their leadership. Or else the leadership is a failure. And how can you have respect for people that don't feed children? You can't. They claim they want to protect the children, but they won't. They claim they support veterans, but they don't. All that said, I believe we have the money, that we could find the money to fund programs to get veterans off the streets with all these vacant houses across the country. We could get homeless vets off the street. We could get homeless children off the street. We could just get the homeless off the streets and into homes to begin with. There are more vacant homes in America than there are homeless people in America. And there are programs that we could put in place to help these people get jobs, be able to maintain employment, get help for whatever they need, and get back on their feet. But we're too hung up and worried about the decisions they've made in the past. And I'm telling you right now, it doesn't matter what decisions people have made in the past. They still deserve to function as human beings. They still deserve to eat. They still deserve a home. And they still deserve dignity and respect. And that goes for children, veterans, and all homeless people. Why is it so hard for the right to show empathy? These are things I'll never understand. And this is why I'm a progressive. Because I believe in supporting people, helping people, regardless of what mistakes they may have made in life. I remember when I relied on a food bank for food. They came to my apartment and they talked to me directly. And they talked about how, a lot of people they work with have made bad mistakes in their lives. But they had turned their lives around or tried to. But they can't function without food. And we talked for almost 45 minutes to an hour. Not about me. Not about my problems. Because I wanted to know what they were dealing with. Because we really needed food. But I didn't want to take food out of somebody else's mouth. I was more concerned about the other people. Because that's how I was raised, is to care about other people. That is what being a progressive is about. It's caring about other people. Providing for other people when you need to. And making government programs to allow the dignity of every American. The safety and health of every American. And we have the funding to do it. We're just too scared to go get it. We're so scared that the billionaire class will pack up and move. Well, who cares if they do? Where are they going to go? Russia? Where the oligarchs run the country? Anyways, thank you for watching Unapologetically Progressive. I'll see you down the road.